Hi everyone, I'm Lauren from BAMP and welcome to our session, which is all about building an influencer brief with room for creativity and authenticity. Now, we know that authentic and creative content is what resonates best with audiences and performs best in social campaigns. But in 2021, it actually goes a bit deeper than that because authenticity is an influencer's social currency. And as social platforms offer creators more ways to monetize their content, things like Instagram Live badges or IGTV ads, and platforms like Patreon emerge, creators are looking to turn their followers into super fans to ensure the longevity of their careers. That's why protecting their authenticity and integrity is top of mind when it comes to brand deals. Creators are way more likely to apply for brand briefs that give them the creative freedom to be themselves because they know investing in their personal brand is what matters most. What do I know about it? Well, I'm head of content at BAMP, a global influencer marketing platform that connects the world's best brands with the world's best creators for paid collaborations. It's an all-in-one solution that streamlines the collaboration process at every step. And today I'm really excited to be joined by one such creator, Caitlin Hodgson, who goes by her Instagram handle, Copperfinch. She has been creating incredible content for BAMP clients for years now, and she's going to help me shed some light on the matter. Together, we'll learn how to create the perfect influencer marketing brief that covers off all of those points and briefs that creators can't wait to apply to. So Caitlin, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. I was really keen to chat to you about this one because you've worked with lots of different brands, but you've managed to keep your feed looking completely cohesive. How important is it to you to be able to interpret brand deals in your own unique style?
I guess for me, I sort of view my Instagram as a little bit of a portfolio, an online scrapbook of sorts. So it's kind of a way for me to present the different work that I do. I do this full time in the freelancer, so it's sort of become a part of my identity, the things that I create. So I think it's important to have a cohesive feel for me because when potential clients come along or people who might be inspired by the things that I do, it's important for them to like see, almost like a put together portfolio at that first stage that's cohesive and also reflects the kind of work I do and the way I want to present myself. I mean, at the same time, I think that Instagram shouldn't be like 100% like a job interview. So you should still let your personality through, maybe in stories and reels and things like that. That's something that I really like about Instagram, that you can connect with other creatives and be inspired, but also educate and things like that. But because it's a visual platform, I think if you're a visual creator, it's a way of showing that you practice what you preach and you've got a style that you're showing through to the world.
Absolutely. And looking at your feed, often it's just like that first chance to make that first impression, isn't it? And to show what you're all about at a glance, really. I mentioned before that creators are getting really protective of their authenticity, even more than previously, because their relationship with their audience is becoming more important with all these new monetization features. Why is it so important for you in particular?
I think that if the work that I'm creating is to go on to my feed, I want it to be a reflection of myself. So I'll only accept briefs that I can see myself being able to create in a way that I'm proud of, but also that mirrors my personal ethics and point of view. So, for example, I'm a vegetarian, so it wouldn't make sense for me to make a content about meat, for example. Or I don't have kids, so I wouldn't take on a brief that's about, look at my children, like, because some of those briefs are presented to me, but they obviously don't make sense. So I think people can sense when you're not being authentic, and there's no point trying to be someone you're not anyway.
Yeah, definitely. And probably renting some kids for a content brief is probably a step too far, isn't it? So I guess you spoke about some there which are like sort of definitely outside your comfort zone. But what about, how often do you see briefs that you just feel like you can't put your creative spin on? And if that was the case, would you just not take that?
Yeah, I mean, usually when I'm at that stage of seeing a brief and deciding whether I'm going to take it or not, it's whether I'm first inspired by it and whether ideas are immediately coming to mind. So, I mean, the first thing that I ask myself is how can I make this move? Because I love making stop motions. It's my main content that I create. So generally for like product businesses, it's a lot easier to find a way to do that. Services are a little bit trickier,
Right.
but they can sometimes it can work, and I'll come up with a bunch of ideas. But yeah, that's probably the one that's a bit trickier to make a stop motion work.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so how can I make this move is sort of running through your mind when you're
Yeah.
reading a brand brief, and it's whether you feel like there's creative freedom for you to be able to make that happen. That's really interesting. So, in your experience these days, are brands more likely to allow creative freedom or be a bit more strict? What's the trend, and why do you think that is?
Yeah, I guess it depends on the brand. I think that bigger global brands that may have gone through a few rounds of decision making when they created the brief, and sometimes even legal processes. Like if they're a bigger brand, they might be a bit stricter if they have a specific thing in mind that they need. And that can be good just so that you know exactly where you stand and what you need to do. But I personally love the briefs that are a little bit open to interpretation, and give me the chance to come up with a unique idea that they may have not considered, or um, yeah, that I'll be like happy that I made.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any sort of examples of brands or briefs that have been particular favorites that you have felt like, okay, I can really do my own thing here, and I can take this and make it feel me?
Yeah, I think there was a brief I did in the first lockdown here for Evodia, and that was for a Mother's Day campaign. And so the brief was kind of, this is about gifting for Mother's Day, and we just want you to focus on the scents of the packages. So I chose the Sea Breeze package because that's the one my mum would love. And then I created like I used fabric and paper and shells and things to make it look like the products were washing up onto the shoreline. It's one of my favorite stop motions I've made. I really liked this particular brief because it was specific enough in what they were wanting, but it did give me a lot of freedom to explore a few other ideas. And it's one of my favorite stop motions that I've made.
Yeah, amazing. I remember that one well. And yeah, I think it's something we always encourage in the briefs when we work with clients, because at the end of the day, I think the creator and the brand both want the same thing. They want a high performing post on their feed. Like the creator doesn't want to have, a post that doesn't resonate with their audience and doesn't do well, nor does the brand. So I think that's definitely a common interest there. I know you've worked quite a lot with Adobe as well, who's obviously is a big global brand and would have kind of those potential legal issues and things that you mentioned before. But I feel like there's quite a lot of creative freedom in those briefs, would you say?
Yeah, exactly. So having said that about the big brands, I think, yeah, I've been lucky enough to work with Adobe through Vamp a few times, and yeah, I think they do that well because their product is about inspiring creativity and letting you experiment and do your own thing. So one of the recent campaigns was to make a reel that was about women creatives. So as you can imagine, there's a whole different array of ways that you can be creative, and the things that people came up with were so varied and wonderful and interesting and inspiring, and I just thought it was a great campaign.
Yeah, amazing. We can always see those brands that have been quite open with a creative brief when we see the content roll in, and you get a real mix of perspectives and different content types and even different content formats across Instagram. So I think that's really interesting. Um, So I think Adobe is a good example because they've probably built their confidence with influencer marketing over the years with lots of different campaigns. But for a brand that is starting out in the channel and is looking to brief creators, what's your advice to them? Like, how do you create a brief that a creator like you can't wait to apply to?
I think that it's really good to be very open with your communication, and communicate as much as possible that you want from the content.
Yeah.
So, you know, earlier in my career, I was in in-house creatives for a few different brands. So you're privy to those conversations around strategy and what you want the content to do and things like that. So including the intention for the content is helpful to know. And then, yeah, what you want it to vaguely look like, for example. You know, if there's something that you definitely want in it or definitely don't want in it, include that as well, just so you're very clear, there's no ambiguity, so that you avoid heartache later on.
Definitely. It's distilling that sort of need to know information, isn't it? Without telling you absolutely everything, and you've got to sift through that information to find out what's important to you and what's going to sort of shape your work. And that's why we've got this do's and don'ts section in the briefs that we have in our platform, because we found that that was the best way to make it really clear to creators sort of how they should be approaching their content. So if we kind of think about do's and don'ts with creating briefs, what should a brand always do? And then we'll talk about what a brand should never do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that if a brand is wanting if they're wanting a creative interpretation of a brief, or a new unique perspective and things like that, I think it's good to be clear in your objectives and maybe a concept that you have in mind for their campaign, but to leave it open enough for that person to have their own unique spin on it, because they might come up with something that you just never would have considered. But yeah, I think communication is also very key from the start, before the project, during the project, and after the project, just to make sure everybody's happy. And yeah, just to list the essentials. And as you're saying, the VAMP do's and don'ts is really great because it's so clear. Like, absolutely don't do this, and would love to have this, or
Yes.
it needs to have that. So
Okay.
it's really good to have it all outlined like that.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, and what's a no-no? What should a brand never do when they're briefing the creator?
So I just think that if there's ever a brief that's just too vague, it can be really tricky to start with a project, and to figure out what someone's wanting. And you can have that paralysis of choice almost, because, yeah, I guess creatives sometimes we're just like brainstorming and going like, over here was something crazy, and that might not be what the brand would want at all. And then if you go ahead and make it, and they're not happy with it, then no one's going to be happy.
Yeah, you don't want to hear, just have fun with it. And then they say what you're going like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
I think
I'll
that's a
know what I like when I see it is not constructive or
I mean, yeah, that is the classic thing you don't want to hear, isn't it? And I think that's a really interesting point, because I guess what we're not recommending is unbridled freedom and absolutely no parameters to that. I guess it's just understanding that you're working with creators because you want their amazing perspective on your brand or your product, and just approaching those collaborations as real creative partnerships. And yeah, communication is key. I think just always an amazing piece of advice when it comes to working with creators. Okay, well, amazing advice. Thank you so much, Caitlin, for joining us on this one. And for anyone watching, please go and check out Caitlin's amazing work on stop motions on Instagram. You can find her at Copperfinch. If you're a creator watching this and you're curious about the VAMP community, then download our VAMP app to apply. And if you're a brand and you want to come and see the foolproof briefing templates that we've been speaking about, then get in touch and we'll hook you up with a demo. Thanks for watching.